And welcome into your local election headquarters here at KRK4 and Fox 16. I am Mitch McCoy. Glad to have you along on our website today. You know that we've been talking to various candidates running for the Little Rock Board of Directors, and really this entire article is focused on making sure that you are prepared before you head to the polls. You know who your candidates are. I want to get directly to our next interview, which you know, because you're in this section, would be incumbent Dean Kumpuris. Dean, so good to see you. I usually have people introduce themselves, but we know that you're an incumbent. We know you're on the board. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know.
Well, there's very few things. I'm a pretty bland person. I grew up in Little Rock. I went to Forest Park, Forest Heights, and Hall, went away for college and medical school, and I've been back here practicing medicine since that time. And basically, I like hunting and fishing and being outdoors and being with my wife and family. So that's about it.
That's great. That's great. Let's just jump right into it, Director. Crime in Little Rock has been an issue for years. You know this, you've been on the board. What is your opinion on the relationship between the Little Rock Police Department and the community? What ideas do you have to improve community policing, and how should the crime rate be addressed?
Great question. When we went through Future Little Rock, we developed alert centers. And at this point in time, they are underutilized. And what I would love to do is get them back to their full scope, especially with police and community policing on bikes, walking, and that sort of thing. We have already done a lot of things to help our relationship with the community. We've banned chokeholds. We've taken taken away no-knock warrants, and we recently passed and just instituted in the last 2 or 3 days body cameras. So all those things help. The other thing that we need to do is we need to better utilize facilities and opportunities in the communities where there are problems. And one thing is using our PIT funds better. There are multiple institutions that are already there that we need to help fund, like the Boys and Girls Club, which has 6 units south of 630. We need to help with people like Doris Wright in the West Central Community Center, who does a great job bringing kids in and bringing the community together and bringing the police with them. And we need to continue funding our police at the same level we have, but we need to pivot on how we use those funds. So we need to look and see if we really need to have policemen taking care of mental illness problems. We need to look and see if we need the police taking care of domestic issues. I've been in medicine for a long time, and what I did when I started medicine and what I'm doing now is different. And so I think we have to re-examine how we do relationships with the community and use the best practices of today. So thank you.
So in sticking with the Little Rock Police Department, and you know this, you're on the board, there appears to be some kind of an apparent discord within the Little Rock Police Department currently. The police chief is facing multiple lawsuits from current and former city employees. The police chief, in his individual capacity, is suing Little Rock employees over civil rights violations. If reelected to another term, how do you plan on addressing these apparent issues inside the city's police department?
Well, it's a great question, and there's unfortunately a very short answer. As you know, the police chief comes under the purview of the mayor in his office, and he is hired and can only be fired by the mayor. So that is the sole purpose who can really direct that. Tom Carpenter has told us really not to comment on any of these lawsuits. I will tell you that privately, that does not keep me from talking to the policemen, the police unions, and the mayor about my thoughts on how to resolve these issues. And I will continue pushing, trying to get these things resolved, because the end result is, if we keep this up, we're going to be losing experienced policemen to the state, to other jurisdictions. And what happens when you do that is that you lose that middle core of experience that you need to help take care of and train the younger people who are coming in. So it is an issue that we need to address, and I'm trying to address it privately, but I'd rather not talk about any of the lawsuits, either the one the chief instigated or the employees instigated.
You know, the board's at-large positions have always been a hot topic, even recently as the last couple of years. Do you believe the board should be restructured?
No. And let me tell you why. That it is an interesting question, and people talk about representation. And there is a perception that people aren't represented well. If you think about if you had an all ward system, you would have two people you could go to, your ward director and the mayor. With the setup we have right now, you now have five people that you can go to. You can go to the mayor, you can go to the ward director, and you can go to the three at-large directors. If you just look at two great examples of how things work. As you know, I have been very interested in downtown revitalization and helping Riverfront Park and all parks get better. It is in Irma's ward. Irma is very concerned about neighborhoods and that sort of thing, but her interest doesn't lie in these two areas. If you had a situation where I didn't have the ease of going into these areas, it would make it much more difficult to help in these areas to do the things that I've done. And the second area is that go back to Doris Wright in their West Central Community Center. Doris does a great job of taking care of that area and taking care of kids and being a great advocate for that center. But she oftentimes needs help. So she'll call me or Jean or Joan and say, look, this is an issue I need some help with. So we help each other because I represent the whole city, not just one part of the city. Mm-hmm. And if you're an individual citizen, you now have five people you can call, and I get calls from all over the city to try to address issues that either they don't want to call their ward representative or they don't get the answer or the results they want. So that's the answer to that question.
So, and you've kind of opened the door to the next one. You say that, you know, it gives you an opportunity to work with other board members, but some board members have been vocal in recent months about an apparent disconnect between the mayor's office and some members of the board. How do you plan on working with the executive office but still hold executive leadership accountable?
Well, it's a good question, and part of the situation we're in right now is that Frank is a very proactive person, and he gets an idea and moves ahead with it. And oftentimes there's a blurring between the duties of the board, and that is setting policy, and the executive function, which is instituting those policies. And I think we've become a much better understanding of that. And as we go through the budget process for the next couple of months, I think that those two relationships will be more clearly defined, and we'll be able to work together much better.
So some would say the city has taken a significant effort to revitalize neighborhoods. Of course, others would disagree. How would you further those efforts?
Can I take 5 and 6 together?
Yeah, absolutely. So that next question would, so that way so people know, people have voiced concerns about a racial divide, specifically using I-630 as a reference between poor neighborhoods, middle class, and upper class neighborhoods. What part will you have to help unite the city? So if we're going to merge both questions together.
Well, those are really two great questions. Really, the real problem is disparity between really areas east of I-30 and south of 630. And it came to a head with the marches and the Black Lives Movement that occurred earlier this year. And there's lots of things going on. There's lots of things that were going on prior to this time, but let me kind of go over some examples of what I think we need to do, because a rising tide rises all boats, and that's what we need to have. When we had the problems, um, a group of us, not on the board, went to the Think Big group, which were a group of young people from 25 to 40 who spent a year and a half looking at the issues in town and defining what needs to be done. Because what you have to remember is I'm I've got a short tenure left. They're the ones that are going to make the policy for our decision, a policy for our community, and they're our lifeblood. So we went to them and said, would you please define the issues that are upsetting the people that we need to work on? And they brought back a list of things. And the business community, along with the city, have divided up those issues into solvable problems that will address the questions that you have. One is the food deserts that exist mainly south of 630. A food desert is where you can't get to a grocery store easily. And we divided up and started working on this and found out that Grant Tennille in the city was way ahead of us, working with a group of people from Alabama who specializes in these areas. We've taken the business community's expertise, married them with Grant, and with Ken Richardson, who's been working on these issues for a long period of time, to start not only putting a grocery store on 12th Street someplace, but all areas south of 630 that can provide the things that people need. The second issue that we're working on, that Darren Williams has really been working on for a long period of time, that now there's a big group working on, is not only food deserts exist, but banking deserts exist. And so banking deserts are inability of people in these areas to get to a bank or have banks understand their needs. So Darren's going to set up one of his banks in the 12th Street police station, and then he's going to build his headquarters someplace south of 630. The other thing that Darren and a group of us are doing is trying to raise $5 million in order to provide small loans to businesses that can't go into any bank and get a loan, so they then can become bankable. And if you start doing that, all the small businesses that need some money to get ahead can start having that. Albert Brunfest is working to try to set up a situation where small businesses will want to come into these areas, but small businesses that exist in these areas need the expertise on how to do payrolls and different things like that. So we can help people get on their feet and become productive citizens. UAMS, Baptist, St. Vincent's are working together to set up with the land bank and Joan Adcock to set up houses to buy so people that work in those institutions can live close to those institutions. You also have to look at where public money and private money have gone. If you look at MacArthur Park, you see an area that is going to be vastly improved over the next couple of years. We took 2 cents off the A&P tax and we put $30 million into the Arts Center. $90 million is going to be raised by the public to build a first-class arts center and grounds that'll be in MacArthur Park. What that does is it helps those areas stabilize and become more vibrant places to live. People talk about I-30 and the expansion of I-30. What they don't realize is that when I-30 comes, we have worked with the highway department to make the bridges at 6th Street and 9th Street not only just a little bridge to come over, but a walking path, biking path, so people east of I-30 don't feel like they're being cut off from areas west of I-30. So you can go from the neighborhoods east of I-30, go right to the Arts Center, and then go downtown. And there's a group of us that are trying to find private money to build a park above the interstate between 6th and 9th Street, so you connect MacArthur Park, downtown, the area that's going to be the new park when all the stuff gets taken out for the new road, to the Clinton Park and Riverfront Park. And you then have a vibrant park system that goes from your riverbank to Ninth Street, and that will help and stabilize and make these areas more practical, more profitable, and areas that people want to live. So that's the answer to 5 and 6.
Well, and you kind of opened up that door about the just the change of life and more access for people. If elected to another term, what will you do to improve the quality of life for every citizen?
Well, that is again the essence of what we have to be doing. You have to realize that we have to keep and attract young people to our community, and at the same time make our community more livable for the people that are here. So we have a great number of parks, mainly in the eastern part of our community, but parks that are in state of disrepair. Parks, when properly maintained and used by the community, are sources of entertainment and exercise, but they are also great opportunities for protection. And it keeps people out of areas that don't need to be there. It is the greatest policing that you can have is neighbors taking care of neighbors, and parks are a way of that happening. We need to continue providing opportunities for young people and all people to have activities that are free and that you can use. So Riverfront Park is a great example. You have a child's area for kids younger than 4 or 5. You have another spray fountain for kids that are older. You have bike trails. You have the sculpture garden. You have all sorts of amenities where people can go all the time. You have 6 museums downtown, all in walking distance. But in addition, we've just spent $500,000 putting revising a new park and putting a spray park in East Little Rock. So as we do those things, we need to provide more opportunities and activities for people. The last thing that we have never done, or we're starting to do, is that we built La Harp and we put a wall up, and we've never recognized that our greatest asset is the Arkansas River. We need to continue looking at ways to explore the Arkansas River. Lake Dardanelle is nothing but an extension of the Arkansas River. So we now are going to have a new development east of downtown that have boats, docks. We have one in North Little Rock. And as we start using those areas, it'll become more used, and we'll start using hopefully Lake Little Rock to further those activities. If you go out west, the Little Maumelle River now has become a great area for taking canoes and paddle boats and going up towards Pinnacle. You have the premier bike trail probably in the United States, with the Big Dam Bridge and now the Clinton Bridge, so you can loop between them and you can go to Two Rivers Park and you can keep riding forever. And we can then start providing more and more bike trails and more activities. We have to help our institutions that are cultural institutions that also attract people. And that's not only the Arts Center, but the museums downtown. The Rep hopefully will come back, the Symphony, and all of those cultural things that make Little Rock a more vibrant place to live. And then we need to make it easy and safe for bars and restaurants and coffee shops for people to congregate and have a good time together. So all of those things are what we need to do to help take care of that.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about finances, and this is going to be a packed question here, so I apologize, and just a heads up, we have about 5 minutes left. If elected, your term would consist of rebuilding the city's economy after the COVID-19 global health pandemic. Many businesses have been forced to close. What kind of experience do you have to ensure Little Rock not only bounces back, but grows to a new height? Also, in recent years, and the board that you sit on now announced this financial struggle that caused layoffs and park closures. If reelected, how will you ensure the city avoids future layoffs and other closures?
Again, a great question. And let me start off with just an unfortunate fact of life. Because of the COVID situation, Stevens Inc. estimates that we'll not get back to the level of our 2019 revenues until 2022. So we're going to have to be nimble and quick in what we do. Now, you have to understand that about half of our money that we live on and work on comes from property tax, and that's pretty well set, and we have no control over that. And then franchise fees have been going up and down for years, but generally down because of all sorts of different reasons, which means that we have to have a way of creating more jobs, better jobs to attract people and keep people here. We spend and we have a partnership with the chamber where we give them $250,000 a year. We don't give them; they bid on it and they get $250,000, and they match it with basically $1 million to do economic development. If you take cities around us, and let's just take Shreveport, Louisiana, which has a total budget of $2,200,000, and the city puts in about $480,000. Or Wichita, Kansas, which has about $2 million, and the city puts in $680,000. So we have to work together with businesses, with the city board, the chamber, and other opportunities to attract more business. And it's working. If you look at the last 3 years, according to Brian Day, we have had a total of 2,500 new jobs at the port, and they have had 3 new buildings built that are now owned by the city. So we need to become more aggressive in our recruitment. And if we do the things we talked about, how you make the quality of life better, then it is easier to recruit people here, because when businesses come and they see a vibrant city with lots of opportunities for people, and you have plans to take care of areas that aren't doing as well, then they're much more likely to locate here. So the answer is that you can never prevent city layoffs if there's not enough money, but you can buffer that by building more jobs, getting more revenue, especially when you realize that the revenue, as far as being, if we stayed status quo, we would be back in 2019 in the amount of revenue that we have to work with. So you have to build your economy, and you build your economy with partnerships, and that's what we've done all through the time I've been on the board. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today on our website, krk.com and fox16.com.
Thank you.
All right, and a reminder, Election Day is November 3rd, krk.com, fox16.com, your local election headquarters leading up to the election and on the big day. For now, I'm Mitch McCoy. Take care.